Hello and welcome to today's LOL Esports Round Up. We're going to cover the news from the last 24 hours. I'm going to cover the LCS games from last night, LPL and LCK from earlier this morning, LEC that just finished up about an hour and a half ago, and then preview tomorrow's games in the LPL, LCK, and LEC. My predictions: members only tier at $10 a month, 169 and 73 on the season. LCS started with TSM and C9. TSM came in 5-5, C9 7-3, and C9 would win. They finally got it together. Their jungle mid duo of Blabber and Eminez the second time around did a lot better than the first time around on Thursday night. Blabber was MVP on a Rengar, which is fun. We're seeing that out of the four major regions, and LPL obviously has some creativity with their drafts because of how many teams they have. But when it comes to the LCK and LEC and the jungle meta, it's not as crazy. We see the Bel'Veth and the Lilia. And with the LCS, we've seen the Amumu and now the Rengar into Elise. Berserker 5-0-13, 29% of damage on a Sivir. Eminez finally shows up with an 8-2-6 on LeBlanc. Neo 6-4-3, 32% of TSM's damage. Definitely a game where there's mid diff, right? Maple really couldn't keep up with Eminez. Blabber obviously affecting the Rift in a big way, not allowing Boogie to make things happen on the Elise, which is a big deal because Elise is an S tier jungle along with Sejuani and Maokai. Better team one for sure. I had predicted TSM. I thought Eminez, based on how poorly he played against Golden Guardians and Gory, I thought there's no way he was going to recover right away, and he did. He was very effective. C9 were effective all over top to bot. Just a great performance. Now the games were out of order after that because of the way Games of Legends had the stats, and I just didn't want to, lag my computer anymore. So we're just doing it in whatever order it is. Dignitas and FlyQuest. I know this was the last game of the night. FlyQuest 11th in the power rankings, 9-1. Dig 1-9. Spica was MVP on a Amumu. Vikla 625, 28% of damage on an Akali, if I recall. Might have been a Sylas. He plays Akali, Sylas, and Victor on rotation. Impact 733 on a Renekton, and Tomo did very well, 542, 30% of damage. He stood his ground a couple times. FlyQuest opened a massive lead in this one. I want to say 3K at 6 minutes was something that I think I recall. Level 1, Armit was on Olaf and invaded invaded Fly's jungle and was effective. He stalled out Spica's clear by a couple seconds and then, harassed Impact all the way up into top lane and into top lane to the point where Impact had to go underneath his turret. Literally keeping him from farm. Now, the problem is Santorin goes in there and tries to take the red because now, there's a little bit of a diffy in top lane and he wants to invade. Unfortunately for him, he loses the smite fight to Spica. Spica Q's in, steals the red, starts beating Santorin, the Amumu beating the Wukong into the river. Now Armit's completely out of mana. He tries to help. Vikla comes over before Jensen, which then allows for Fly to get a couple kills and all of a sudden be up 2-1 in kills, and the game spiraled out of there. It was a real shame because honestly, Armit, we give him a lot of grief all the time, but this time he actually set Dignitas up in such a good way on the top side of the Rift, and it completely went up in flames as quickly as the lead was, built by him. So it really sucks. Armit, I thought, did very well in that moment, and then the rest of the game was just an int fest, and honestly, I don't blame him. Now, Spica's MVP because he steals that red, and that red just spirals into what it was. Fly, though, that big lead, it took them a long time to finish this game. Fly definitely are a hell of a lot better than Dig, but it took a long, long time. And I'd be slightly concerned with that. And I thought Tomo, like I said, he stood his ground. Tomo has definitely been better than Spawn. We went over it yesterday. The stats of Spawn were probably the worst stats I've ever seen out of AD carry. 0.5 KDA, 35 KP. I mean, Tomo could be awful, and I don't think his stats will look that bad if he plays the rest of the split. 100 Thieves in TL, 100 Thieves win. Both teams were 4 and 6. Bjergsen was MVP, completely based off of a final fight, really. This game was very close until the final fight. Actually, Liquid with the advantage. They get 100 Thieves get an edge. They take the Baron, and then Bjergsen gets a few kills. Doublelift gets a couple kills, and they close up shop in the next couple minutes after that. Bjergsen 7-1-3 with 44% of the team's damage on a Victor. Doublelift 4-3-5 on a Zeri. Harry 4-2-3, 30% of damage on a Silas. Harry did not do poorly. It was definitely not his fault this game went the way it was. It's more bot side. Yeon and Core JJ laning phase was okay, but in team fights, Yeon just did not have the aggression necessary to really make the Lucian work. And I know I was watching Yamato's co-stream, and it was with Dominate and Upset and Jizuke and maybe even Jack Spectre still on. I don't know if he's still on. They've got a big group going. It's really interesting to hear so many pros and then a coach and talk about the game. Now, it just he just wasn't aggressive in that co-stream. Yamato was like freaking out. He was like, "Oh my god, why isn't he doing anything?" And it was like, truly, he was so passive on the Lucian. It was like, why even bother playing this champion? So in team fights, 100 Thieves just end up with the edge because of this. When it came to 5v5s, TL just could not step up. Summit, however, was a bright spot for TL as well. I thought he was on the Scion into Tenacity's Kesante, and he actually did quite well. Golden Guardians and EG. Golden Guardians 6-4, EG 7-3, 20th in the power rankings. Golden Guardians win. River MVP on a Sejuani. Sticks a 915, 30% of damage. Huhi 1-1-15. FBI 332, 34% of EG's damage. Definitely a big diffy in the mid lane. Jojo struggling into Gory, and River taking advantage of him, and he just ended up in such a massive hole there was no way of coming out of it. The bot side of the rift, Stixay, during laning phase things were alright, but once it got to the mid and late game, Stixay was on fire. He has played a great last few weeks ever since Gory has joined the team. The whole team's gotten better. Licorice is still struggling at times, but now that there are so many, now that Gory's doing okay, River's always been great. And the bot side of the rift is playing a lot better than normal. Licorice is a little, more free when it comes to, playing weak side, not having to worry too much because the opposition's jungle is so focused on trying to limit what Gory is doing and what the bot side of the rift are doing. Immortals and CLG, IMT 2-8, CLG 5-5, CLG win. Luger was MVP. Palafox 7-1-6, 29% of damage on a Jace. Contracts 5-1-12 on a Maokai. Tactical 4-4-3, 37% of damage for Immortals. Not gonna lie, I don't remember a lot about this game. I think that happened the last time Immortals and CLG played. IMT just, I say it every time. I'm going to say it again. Dignitas has made a change. They went 1-1 this past week. Their split is pretty much over, right? They're 1-10. But they made a move. Immortals need to make a move. Can't emphasize it enough. CLG taking a game that they need to take. Dokla on Gwen did his job in team fights. He had some moments that looked very good. Contracts obviously on the Maokai really set everything up for the team. Giving Maokai is just, I don't know how a team thinks to themselves, we can give Maokai. I don't. I don't see it. You need to ban Maokai. The fact that they didn't was just crazy. Absolutely crazy. LPL, RNG, and Thunder Talk. RNG 10th in the power rankings at 4-4. Thunder Talk 5-3. RNG win 2-0. Angel 15-4, 17, 25% of damage. Led the team in damage, RNG in damage. Ming went 1-0-38 for MVP. Yes, deathless, 1-0-38. A lot of people liked Gala's KDA because of all the kills. I think Ming was the better of the two. UCal 698, 29% of damage for ThunderTalk. Game 1, his Tristana was very impactful against Angel. He did a lot of work. Bechuan going mid lane. ThunderTalk had the edge. However, Ming started hitting arrows from literally everywhere on Ashe. And, that was a big difference maker. All of a sudden, people are dying when they didn't expect to die. All of a sudden, an arrow's going from mid lane to top lane or bot lane to the opposite side river. Like, it was absolutely nuts. Ming was great on the Ashe. And that was the difference, in my opinion. Sure, Gala starts racking up a bunch of kills, gets into double-digit kills, but Ming is setting these fights up. He is hitting some, unlikely arrows. Now, in Game 2, he played Nautilus, and he didn't die. And sure, that's not enough for MVP, but he was hitting his hooks. And when he missed his hooks, he still had good dredge lines to, Is dredge line the name of the Q? It doesn't matter. I think I guess it would confuse you if I was talking about the same ability twice. Doesn't really matter though. Altis. His altis obviously affecting multiple people if done, properly. So RNG definitely with the edge. ThunderTalk spot lane, Wanfeng and Yao Yao not doing great. Honestly, actually, in laning, it's funny because I self-admitted, I've been a big Yao Yao supporter, get Yao Yao in the lineup. And Yao Yao has definitely helped the team in the mid to late game more than Jinlu has. But during laning phase, actually, the bot lane's gotten worse in a at 15 minutes sort of way. And I'm actually going to look a little closer and see what the, enemy bot lanes have been. Obviously, RNG's bot lane, one of the better ones. And just see maybe if ThunderTalk, it's more to do with the bot lanes that Jinlu faced versus Yao Yao, just to see why that is going the way it is. Ultra Prime in EDG, Ultra Prime 3 and 5, EDG 5 and 2, 7th in the power rankings, easy 2-0 for EDG. Leave went 17, 6 and 17, 31% of damage, was MVP. JJ 8, 1 and 31, yes, 8, 1 and 31 in 2 games. Doggo 5, 10 and 9, 30% of damage for Ultra Prime. This series was heavily EDG favored. The first game, Fofo honestly was probably the best player on the Azir. He had a massive quadra ulti in the bot lane on Azir that literally set everything up for EDG the whole rest of the way. It was just a massive gap after that. Just a massive gap. And it just rolled from there. JJ doing work. Leave cleaning up, obviously, doing his job. Mako having having moments that were very impactful. I will say the top side of the rift ended up on an island. Ale and Harry, I think Ale went 3-2 and 2 both games. Now, let's just assume JJ had 100% KP, which he didn't. That's 39 kills, and Ale was involved in 10 of them, at best. Like, topside on a complete island. This was not a 5v5 sort of series. Game 2, Fofo, not as impactful. I thought he was kind of doing his own thing in mid lane, puttering around, not as involved. JJ doing a lot more of the work, and then Leave cleaning up. So, in the end, I go with Leave because in both games I thought he did something where I thought Fofo was the best one in Game 1 and maybe JJ in Game 2, which is, sure, kind of weird for some people. I thought Baolan, he did some good things on the Ashe. He had some good arrows. Just talking about Ming, and I'm going to give Baolan some credit. I thought he had some impact. But outside of that, honestly, I thought Ultra Prime were pretty bad. King, I think there was one moment where they executed a good bot dive, but otherwise, I mean, we're getting desperate here to find some good moments by Ultra Prime in this one. Obviously, highly anticipated JDG in top. JDG third in my power rankings at 6 and 2. Top fifth at 6 and 1, and JDG win 2-0. This was not a clean 2-0. Game 2 definitely better than Game 1 in terms of from JDG's perspective. Game 1 actually top was in the lead going into the mid game and through some of the mid game, and then JDG would take over. Ruler 9010, 32% of damage was MVP. 369, 2215 in top lane. And then Rookie went 4, 4, and 4, 31% of damage. Rookie doing work in game 1. I think he had a positive KDA, but then in game 2 he was relatively useless. I think he played Azir and Victor between the two games. I picked top to win this. I thought that maybe by having a week off, they could have prepped for JDG and been ready for him, but they just, they threw game 1, and then after throwing game 1, they struggled to really recover in game 2, and Kanavi was very good, I thought, on the Lee Sin in this series. He really was all over the place on it. This was marquee. This was a marquee series. This was, super important to, obviously, my power rankings, but also the LPL as a whole, as everyone's trying to figure out the hierarchy, when really everybody's kind of losing to everybody. All the good teams, EDG losing to top, but EDG beat JDG. Weibo beat top, but Weibo lost to BLG, and you can go down the list and go back and forth with all this, and who knows what's going to happen. We have Weibo and LNG tomorrow, the best game of the day probably. So, everybody's, at the top in the LPL doing a lot of work. Even RNG, they just 2-0 Thunder Talk relatively easily, and they are a completely different team with Angel in the lineup, which I expected. I've been waiting on it, and I think RNG are going to be a threat to these top teams because RNG just always are in spring. It's just a reality. So we'll see what happens we'll see what the fallout is after this JDG top series. LCK, T1 and KT. T1 first at 10-1, KT 7-4. I named Carrier MVP. I thought he definitely was way better in game 1 than game 2. But, it was him or Guma. You could pick anybody, I think. Guma, 12-11, 28% of damage. Zeus, 5-1-8 in top lane. BDD, 2-7-4, 31% of damage for KT. Won't lie, not really recollecting a lot from this one. Guma's game 2 sticks out. He was a lot better than Carrier in game 2. Owner was all over the place. Owner's KDA ended up being nasty. Not as good as Zeus's, but I think it was 9.5 in the end. Cuz just couldn't keep up with Owner. BDD really couldn't keep up with Faker. Even though Faker didn't get a lot of kills, Faker was impactful. And that's, shown in BDD's KP with only being involved in 6 kills. This just ended up being a lot more one-sided than we probably expected. Thought KT would do a little bit more work, especially because T1 have kind of taken their foot off the gas lately at times throughout series and got a little, almost scrim happy when it comes to the way they play. But against KT, they did take it pretty seriously and not give KT much of an opportunity. Nongshim and Sandbox. Nongshim 1-10, Sandbox 7-4, 8th in the power rankings. Sandbox win 2-1. This was a very long series. Game 1 going over 50 minutes. Nongshim keeping up in game 2 for a lot longer than you probably would expect. Willer ends up being MVP as Wukong in game 3 was nasty. This happened again. This happened in a series. I don't know if it was the one right before this or the one before that. But Willer's Wukong in must-win games has done very, very well, taken over the game. Closer 10-9-21, 30% of damage. Envy 17-6 and 16. Vital 12-11 and 11, 31% of damage. Game 1, like I said, super, super long. It was back and forth for a long time. Sandbox with a slight edge, but then, all of a sudden at 45 minutes, there's a fight. 48 minutes, there's a fight. Nongshim wins, and then they win the game. I am happy that I 2-timesed that one, rewatching it, because that is, I don't know, watching 50 minutes of Nongshim doesn't sound like a great idea. Game 2, Vital, I thought, was very good in the bot lane against Envy. A lot of back and forth between the two bot lanes. I thought Sandbox's bot lane was not as good as it usually is. I don't believe... trying to reword what I just said because it sounded like a bunch of crap. But Sandbox's bot lane left a lot on the table against Nongshim today. I expect them to beat Nongshim's bot lane pretty handily, and it didn't happen. And then, honestly, I thought that Closer got the better of Fiesta in Game 2 and Game 3. I think that Nongshim, a young team, and the thing is, though, both these teams are young. And that's the thing. Like, you see both ends of the spectrum here. Sandbox going to 8-4, Nongshim going to 1-11, right? But the fact of the matter is, all you can do is grow and get better. If you're Nongshim, you're at, the bottom here. HLE in 2022 was in this spot, and Nongshim seems to be in it as well. LEC. So this fresh in my mind. Koi and Mad Lions. Koi 19th, Mad Lions 14th. Mad went 3-1, and honestly, I thought it was going to be opposite. I thought Koi was going to win this one 3-1. Chasey 13-8-36 was my MVP, going 29% of the team's damage. Had 1,000 DPM on Jace in one of the games, if I recall correctly, and that in and of itself, out of a top laners don't always lead their team in damage, don't always have a nasty KDA, don't always do things like this. And Game 4, his Aurelia into Sisgenda's Gnar was just like so oppressive. Elyoya 19-8-39, Comp 18-9, 25, 32% of damage. It looked like a team that hadn't played in a while against a team that had played yesterday. And I was wondering, so yesterday I picked Koi because I was like, Mad, that's a lot of games they played. They played 5 games yesterday. Are they ready for another 5-game series? If this goes 4 or 5 games, are they going to run out of steam? And they didn't. And then the opposite I should have thought was, are Koi going to be a little rusty? Now, Game 1, they won, right? Larson on the Tristana really did a lot of work. Very good. Almost toting the line of a male fight, I said in Discord, because he was going in and so aggressive, but it looked fabulous. Mad Lions pulled out Gragas Yasuo, and that was awful. They didn't do that again. The Yasuo was put back in the closet. Gragas being played the rest of the way. But the thing is, like, Elyoya, I thought, kept up with Malrang in that one, despite Malrang having Elise. And that was notable because Elyoya was reading what Malrang was doing before Malrang would do it, which is not common. Usually Malrang gets his ganks off, and he was not doing it and was not successful. And I was saying to myself, if Elyoya is keeping up in this matchup, this is a good sign for Mad Lions, and Elyoya was able to take advantage of Malrang the rest of the way and make sure things went the way he wanted them to. Top side of the Rift was just too massive of a diff in that Jace game and in Game 4. The Aurelia just getting after the Gnar in a very impactful way. I thought mid lane, Niski and Larson. I thought Larson got the better of Niski over this entire series, but Niski's Gragas had some good ultis. He did, he did make things happen. He did impact the game. He made sure that, his damage was there, his CC was there with his ulti. Like, it was, it's just really funny that we're seeing all these Gragases and, everyone's attributing it to Faker, but Kanavi actually pulled it out in the jungle first. This past, reiteration of us bringing it out. Both obviously deserve some credit for being willing to give it a go, because Gragas obviously has been around for God knows how long. And then the bot side matchup. So Comp after Game 3 tweeted out something, right? Between Games 3 and 4 or 2 and 3, I don't remember which. And obviously, like I said, I listened to the co-stream, and they were surprised by this and thought it was a problem, and I think it's a problem too. Why is he on a, and not even from, you can't be on your phone during a series sort of way, but in a, you're worried about what Twitter is saying and already apologizing for a game when you have another game to play. Like, mentally, you're not focused on the next game, how you have to change the draft, how you have to approach things, talking with Trimby about it. You are worried about what people think about your build and your champion selection. Like, you're not even worried about, like, what your teammates might think of it, which would matter as you go into the next game to be like, maybe we don't pick this, maybe we pick something else. No, you're worried about what Joe Schmo thinks. And that's a problem. Like, if I'm Koi, I try and figure, like, your split is done. You have to figure out next split how to make sure that doesn't happen. Because that's not okay. Like, not from a you can't be on your phone sense, from like a, hey, comp, why do you feel like you need to worry about what Twitter says in the middle of the series sort of way? Like, I think that matters. And honestly, they should have won game 3. They were absolutely dumpstering Karzi and Hilly in the laning phase because Karzi and Hilly had inted his face off. Honestly, I don't remember if it's game 3 or game 2. But he had inted his face off in level 1, blew his own flash. Might have been game 2 with the Felios Thresh. But the point is, like, they should have won that game. They didn't. And I don't know. I think Koi's mind, I don't think the bot lane was into it. And that's not good. That's not good. Long term, that's not good. Short term, it wasn't good. That ended their split. Sisgenda and Malrang did not do as well as you would have liked. But honestly, comp, like, I wonder if other players on the team are worried about. Was Sisgenda worried? It's definitely a problem in my opinion. Sneak peek for tomorrow. So let's kind of turn a bit for a second. Hopefully I'm still on the screen. LPL, FPX, and LGD. FPX 1-7, LGD 2-6. FPX lost to JDG. LGD lost to RNG. Week 5, day 3 of summer. FPX would win 2-1. 3 of the 10 starters overlap. Karen LWX for FPX and Jin Zhao for LGD. The mid lane matchup was highlighted by the Discord. Care went 13-5-20 for 21% of the team's damage last year. Hai Chao, obviously not with the team. LGD did make a lot of changes during that series. I think they played different top laners, different junglers, different AD carries. It was all over the place. However, Hai Chao was not in there. It was Yeg. So, let's see how this one goes. Hai Chao has done a lot of work in each series for LGD, really. They lose, but he's the one that I'm always mentioning because he's dealing a lot of damage. His KDA is okay, whereas, the other players really not so much. Zhao Zhu, I think I've mentioned him once. Meteor, I think, had played the Silas, so I talked about him a little bit. LPC might have had a good series, but really it's Hai Chao that's been the most consistent. OMG and IG, OMG 3-4, IG 5-4, 16th in the power rankings. IG lost to Weibo, OMG lost to Ultra Prime earlier in the week. Week 10, OMG would win 2-1 in summer. 6 of the 10 starters overlap. The top lane was the matchup highlighted. Shanji went 9-8-20 for 24% of the team's damage. YSKM obviously not in that one because he's a rookie now. Shanji has not quite been as good as I would have liked him to be. Obviously going into the year, I might have had him as one of my top 5 top laners. Probably a bit early on that one, but I thought he was really, really good in summer last year. Just on a bad team, he had some fun, interesting picks. He was winning lane against very, very good top laners, and I thought he was going to progress and get better. It didn't happen, really. I think he's taking a step back. We've seen the Rumble a few times lately. Maybe we'll see it again tomorrow. YSKM, a smaller champion pool, but very, very good at those champions. So, IG need to get back on track, and honestly, this series should be a close one. I think OMG, they have good players. It's without a doubt. If Cream can show up, that's good. If Shanji can show up, that's good for them. Weibo and LNG, definitely the series of the day. Weibo, doesn't have as much stakes, but it's between the two strongest teams. Weibo 6th, LNG 12th. Weibo 5-2, LNG 7-1. LNG beat BLG, Weibo beat IG. The last time they played was in the summer playoffs. LNG would knock out Weibo in that one 3-1. Only 2 of the 10 starters overlap, Tarzan and the Shy. Tarzan would go 9, 6, and 32 for 12% of his team's damage. Karsa obviously playing for Victory 5 at that time, so he was not playing for Weibo. So Weibo's jungler was S of M. Obviously different meta. That was a lot more, I think this meta is slightly, with the Maokai, it boosts the damage numbers a bit, where that one was more dog-oriented. That was a very doggy dog world sort of jungle situation. Definitely the two junglers I think that are doing the most right now. Kanavi is a carry jungler, where these guys are more facilitator-oriented and carrying through that. Karsa's had some very, very good Vi performances. Tarzan has had great Sejuani performances. So I think this is going to be a very good series. I expect it to go 3 games, and we'll see what happens. This is LNG's biggest series yet. The BLG one was the biggest one before this one. So if LNG can do it, that's a statement win. That's going to be a statement win. The 1-2-1 against BLG was a little sloppy, but this one, this will matter. LCK, Bro, and DRX. Bro, 23rd in the power rankings at 4 and 7. DRX 1 and 10. Bro lost to HLE. DRX lost to Genji. Week 3, day 1. Earlier in the split, Bro would win 2-1. Top lane was highlighted by the Discord. Morgan went 5, 4, and 7 for 15% of the damage, and Rascal went 7, 6, and 8 for 25%. So 2 very different impacts there, right? Obviously, DRX not dealing a lot of damage opposite of Rascal, because Rascal dealt 1 quarter, where Morgan dealt 15%. And Morgan's on the winning side, so obviously Henna and Karis were a little more active than what Fate and Duckdom might have been. Playeta's probably playing again, and he struggled last time against, who was it? Genji. So this is obviously not Genji. Bro, it's not as good as Genji, so we'll see how he does in this one. Kind of figure out where he stands, if he is LCK level at all. His stats, and I went over them a couple days ago when he was introduced in the roundup. His stats at the challenger level were good. Definitely a solid player at that level. Was he exceptional? No, but he was good. And he was not good against Genji. KDF and HLE. HLE 18th in the power rankings at 7 and 4, coming off of the win against Bro. Kwangdong Freaks 2 and 9, coming off of a loss to D+. Week 1, day 2, HLE would win 2-0. This was the start of what was a struggle in the first round robin for HLE. Clid looking downright awful. The mid lane matchup was highlighted from that one. Zeka went 12, 2, and 8 for 20% of the damage. Bulldog 4, 7, and 8 for 29%. Bulldog's debut at only 17 years old. So we'll see if he's shown growth, right? This is a good test for him versus how he did against Zeka in the first time round to this time. Taeyun, very aggressive in the bot lane. Viper had over 1,000 DPM in that one. We'll see if Taeyun can, not allow that to happen this time. I think Moham started that series, and June will be starting in this one, or I don't know if it was vice versa. I think it was June, actually. Well, that's irrelevant. But in the end, I think this is definitely more one-sided than we want to really, it's going to be one-sided. So, LEC. So, like I corrected myself before, this has more stakes than Weibo and LNG, because this is a decider for who goes to MSI. So, one of the 2 seeds. Definitely the 2nd seed guaranteed at worst for the winner tomorrow. G2 and Mad Lions. G2 6 and 3, 13th in the power rankings, coming off of a win against Koi last week. Mad Lions coming off of this win against Koi, and are 14th in my power rankings at 7 and 2. Group stage they played. G2 would win 2-0. The jungle matchup is what I'm highlighting. Yike went 7, 5, and 24 for 25% of the team's damage. Elyoya, not as impactful, going 1, 7, 11, and 10%. We'll see how they do. I think Chasey and Elyoya, coming off of this big series against Koi, are coming in with a lot of momentum. But the worry is still there for me on whether Mad Lions are going to run out of gas. Not to mention they have an inting bot lane that literally you have to flip a coin on and to decide whether they're going to win or lose. But I think it's going to be a good series. This is going to be a good series. We'll see if G2 has anything planned after this past week of scrimming and trying to, maybe come up with some interesting picks. I wonder if we see the Lilia again tomorrow. I think we will. I hope Yike doesn't pick the Bel'Veth. I think that pick sucks. If he does pick it, I think Mad Lions get a win. But that's it for the roundup. If you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter. Join the Discord if you want to participate in picking MVPs. Like all the LCS ones are done, but for these series, the polls for who you think was the MVP of these will be up for you to vote on at the end of the split. I do make note of who the Discord thinks is the All-Star team or MVP of the split. So if you want to participate in that, you can. If you'd like to participate in the pregame polls, we have, like I just said, the Discord wants to highlight this matchup or this matchup. That is there for the series, not tomorrow, but the day before, so you get a day to vote on it. And you can also do predictions. I'm 169 and 73. You do predictions on the predictions thread. I keep track, and I post daily or every couple days the standings if you want to, do that. So, like I said, thank you for watching, and I hope you come back for more content.